Welcome to A Brief Pause, where we take a moment to see what's going on in the pet world, covering a wide variety of pet related topics, including health, training, rescues, and the latest fashion. Have you been curious about what virtual training is? In these times, we're taking different alternatives to get the job done, so to speak. Today, we have a special guest who's been doing that, and he's here to tell us what that looks like and what the pros and cons of virtual training are. I'm here today with Miguel Rodriguez of City Dog Pack. I'm so excited to have him here. I wanted to start in with, firstly, the last time I saw you was on, well, it wasn't your podcast, but it was your Zoom that you were hosting. Um, you were offering a service to your clients, getting them multiple different things, right? During kind of the
hmm
lockdown and stuff, you were hosting these big events where they could get on virtually and get information that they may have needed from whatever experts you could pull from. And I was the honored grooming expert that one day and tried to walk people through doing some home grooming when everything was shut down. But that's the last time I've seen you face to face, and that's the only time I've seen you face to face. We still haven't gotten to meet in person, but I've definitely been paying attention and gotten to know you virtually recently. So Miguel has a company called City Dog Pack, and it's they do GPS monitor dog walking, and he's a dog training coach. So let me start with, how did you get started, or how did City Dog Pack get started? How long have you been doing this? How did you get involved with dogs?
Sure. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, in a pretty tough neighborhood, and I love dogs. My family and I always grew up with dogs. We had pit bulls growing up, and the neighborhood I lived in had a lot of stray dogs. So every day at about 6 o'clock in the morning, I would wake up early, poke my head out the window, and I would watch this pack of stray dogs that would just walk up and down my block every day, and I would just watch them and see how they behaved, and just became fascinated with dogs. And in my teens, I would just read everything I can get my hands on when it comes to dogs. I would buy these dog training cassette tapes. I would rent them at the local video store and watch them at home. So I always loved dogs. And then when I was about 20 years old, I decided to join the Marine Corps, and I wanted to do police canine to be a police canine handler, but it didn't work out, and they ended up putting me in an infantry unit. But while I was in an infantry unit, they learned about my experience with dogs, so they attached me to the military police officers. So we would patrol and try to find bombs using dogs. We would try to find Al Qaeda members as well, with dogs as well. And so when I got out the Marine Corps, I wanted to go to college, and I needed a job to support myself while I went to school. So I just decided, I got certified in California as well while I was in the Marines. And when I came to New York, I got certified again here in New York. And I decided just to help people out with their dog's behavior issues. So I started doing that. And then people started to request dog walks and dog boarding. And then it just took off from there. And when I graduated, I had a tough decision to make, to continue pursuing my dream as a canine handler or keep up with the business. But I was having a blast running City Dog Pack, so I just stuck with it.
That's so cool. I didn't know you took that journey. So many people. First of all, thank you very much for your service.
Sure, my
Um,
pleasure.
and secondly, it's such a cool, I'm sure you, just like me, have seen a lot of people that go the other way, where they start as a walker because, that's a great job to jump into in New York City if you need to just hit the ground running and
hmm
have a job and make some money. But in doing the walking, I think there's a lot of inherently handling and training that has to happen when
hmm
you're dealing with multiple dogs. So I've seen a lot of walkers that start to get into the training that way, but you kind of went the other way. And it's also
Yeah.
super cool that you got the military canine stuff. That's a very specific thing that fascinates me, that obviously I would never be fully privy to
hmm
that to that information, but that's so cool. Um,
Thanks.
how are you guys doing the GPS monitored dog walking? That's a big deal.
Yeah, so it's through a third-party app that I use. I've used a couple of them, and how it works is there isn't one that shows the GPS location in real time. But how it works pretty much is my clients book a walk on the app, and then whenever I pick up the dog, I check in. I take a picture of the dog. I check in, and it shows on their part of the app when their dog was picked up and a picture of their dog. And once we're done with the walk, we check out. And then as soon as we check out, the client gets a snapshot of everywhere the dog went in the area, and clients love it.
That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, I would love that too. That's really neat. So obviously the other big portion of what you do is training. And what I wanted to kind of get into today, because I thought it would be cool to clarify what this looks like and what the differences are, is virtual training. Obviously, first of all, there's the puppy boom of all puppy booms happening right now. So there's so many puppies. And obviously, puppies require training. I don't care what anyone says. Every animal
Mhm.
and every owner requires training.
Absolutely.
I like to tell people that, like, you need to find somewhere that's going to train you to learn how to communicate with your dog. And I mean,
Mhm.
even just in essence on the topically, but then to really get in there. Um, What's going on with virtual training? What does that look like? Because I always would tell people, ideally, and it's not always in everyone's budget or what have you,
Mhm.
but ideally, in-person training where someone comes to you in your environment and teaches you what to do with your dog on your leash, on your block, in your home with your crate, whatever, right? Um, which virtual is a little more hands off. And I feel like there's so much subtlety with some training, especially things like leash training, where it
Mhm.
can be really, really subtle how you hold something a little differently or whatever, that it just seems like you really got to be in person, but obviously not. And I've had people say, whatever companies they're using, I mean, they're kind of popping up. It's everything's brand new, but they've had some great success with virtual training. So enlighten me, what is that looking like? And what are the challenges in doing that?
Sure. So I'll tell you my story about how I got into doing mostly virtual training since the pandemic started. So prior to the pandemic, my business, most of what was paying all the bills were the walks and the boarding. And I was offering training, but I got so busy with the walks and boarding, I kind of put training aside. And I always wanted to, focus more on training. That's how I started, and that's always been my passion. But I was just so busy with the walks. So then COVID hit around March of 2020, of course. And in a matter of 72 hours, I went from having my company had about 100 dogs who were walking every day to about 10. So I had to lay
Yeah,
off a
it
bunch of
was
staff.
rough.
Yeah, it was terrifying because I just bought a house. I just had a baby recently. It was very tough. So I had no money coming in. And then I started to wonder, how can I make some money? Because am I gonna have to give up my business? So I learned that a lot of people were getting new puppies and a lot of people were having trouble because, you know, and no offense to new dog owners, but the average dog owner doesn't know anything about behavior and training. Most
And
people are
how
just
would they? Yeah.
clueless.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so much conflicting information out there online. So that
Mhm.
was happening. So a lot of people started popping up for dog training. And then I realized, it's kind of tough. I can't go to these people's apartments right now. And this is when the very beginning of the pandemic, when we knew probably hardly anything about COVID. So I started offering online sessions, and I realized even prior to the pandemic, when I was doing in person training, most of the training had little to do with me actually touching the dog. Most of the training was me talking to the dog owner, explaining to them what they're doing wrong, some changes they should make, and my philosophy. That was about 90% of the training. So I figured I can make it work. So I tried it a couple times, and I even offered free webinars as well. Like the webinar you joined with me was free, and I was just offering free webinars, and I found that people were having great success. Nothing takes the place of an in-person session with a dog trainer, so they can see your home, they can see if your home is properly puppy proofed, so they could demonstrate obedience commands to you, and they can just grab you by the hand and guide you the whole way through. But I find with my customers in New York, what I do is I have 1 or 2 sessions with them in person, and then the rest we do is pretty much online after that. So as far as behavior stuff, I can cover everything online without being there present. Some of the obedience stuff where I actually have to show them how to lure the dog in a certain position, maybe a little bit tough online. But as far as behavior stuff, I can do everything online, and just offering the free webinars and then just doing one-on-one sessions via Zoom. I've been having great success, and my clients absolutely love it. And it's opened up a lot of doors to me because now I can accept clients all over the country. I mean, just recently I was training someone in Africa, in Thailand, and in South Africa as well. So it's great, and I love where it's going. And now I'm offering webinars to large groups. Every Saturday I do a puppy training webinar where I cover everything from housebreaking, puppy nipping, crate training, fundamentals of obedience, and leash training. And this week I'm adding a separation anxiety class because there are a lot of people working out at home all day. Their dogs are overly attached to them and can't cope being left alone. So I'm adding that this week, and it's working out great.
That's awesome. Yeah, you have a lot going on and a lot
Mm-hmm.
to offer. And I also encourage people to follow the Instagram because you're one of those that produces really good content, and there's a lot of free knowledge on there. But
Thank you.
nothing's going to replace, if someone has a puppy, especially, they really need that one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
They need their hand held through it. They need to learn dog in the beginning, and then of course even just these rescues or someone who's even had a dog a long time but now they're going back to work or whatever. The
Mm-hmm.
separation anxiety is another huge issue going on right now that people could use a little bit of help with.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's great that you had both those skills and you could pivot as a business owner and actually make an opportunity out of it. It's interesting because I'm sort of in the same boat where there was no part of me ever thought I would be on a screen talking someone through grooming their own dog, especially things like toenails. Never in my life, right? Like, I groom a couple veterinarians' dogs and they wait and let me do the toenails, right? The vets. So, like, trying to tell someone over Zoom, but you know what? Drastic times. So, we did it, we absolutely did it. We all had to kind of come together and adapt. I don't think it's something I could super continue to do. That one was a little bit of a stretch, but we did it, and we got some of these dogs through that time because it is a health thing. They do have to be groomed at a certain
Mm-hmm.
point. They can only go so
Absolutely.
far.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and people did great. People used to ask me in the beginning, like, are you worried that your clients are going to learn how to groom and then not use you? I'm like, in fact, it was the opposite effect. When people were doing it, they were more like, this is so stressful. I will pay you extra next time you hear it, that kind of thing. It was a little bit insightful actually for them. And then we usually had a lot of fun doing it as well. They were stressed, but they were laughing. So it was
Mm-hmm.
all good.
A couple things to add to that, what you just said. I did find that at first I thought it was gonna be very difficult to train people to, train their own dogs online. But I find that when I'm not there present and I have to give them instruction and they have to practice on their own, they become less dependent on me. I noticed prior to doing all this Zoom stuff online with dog training, when I would show up and I would do everything for the dog and everything for the human, they depended on me, so they required me to come more often. But now I find that they're being a lot more effective because they're taking it upon their own hands to do it themselves. So
Yeah, and
it's been working out good.
tell me if I'm wrong, but one of my new clients recently brought up the sort of sleepaway camp training places, right? And this
Mm-hmm.
isn't to, speak negatively about anyone else's business or industry or anything like that. But I personally, just my opinion, have never really understood the point of those because, like when you were in the military, if there's a canine unit, that dog is assigned to one person. Why? Because that
Mm-hmm.
they have to have the relationship with the
That
dog,
bond, yeah.
right? So I'm like, I don't think the results that I've seen from that is the dog is well trained when it comes back for that person in that environment. But they still
Mm-hmm.
haven't had that. They've not built that communication and relationship with the owners. So they end up running into problems and thinking it didn't work. And sometimes even sending them back 2 or 3 times. I'm like, you don't get it. It's you have to.
Mm-hmm.
And dogs are smart. I kind of
Mm-hmm.
relate it to the same way that a kid might behave for one teacher at school, but like not the other if they're not as good at the authority, or maybe even with home, but at school, vice versa, that kind of thing, right? I'm like, they know who to
Mm-hmm.
behave for and who not to. It's
That's
it's
true.
how they have set their relationships with each individual person. It's not just they don't, it's not like programming a, clock. Like you don't send them, set the time in another
Yeah.
state and they come back trained.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is interesting that people are doing really well at getting it just virtually, and they're getting it even better. That's really great to hear because
Yeah.
yeah, and maybe I'm
Yeah.
wrong too, but tell me your experience. I feel like the puppy boom that's happening now is mostly first time dog owners as well.
Yeah, I find a lot of them are first time
Mm-hmm.
dog owners who never had dogs in the past, or they did have a dog as a child growing up, but they never actually were the primary caretaker of a dog. And like I said, these people are just absolutely clueless. And to speak on the whole board and train thing, I agree with you. And I actually offer board and train programs as well whenever I'm available, but it does have its caveats because again, what happens is the dog owner becomes very dependent on me to do everything, and they expect their dog to come home as a programmed robot and to behave the way they want them to, and it just doesn't work that way. I do find it does have value, board and train programs, when say if I'm working with an elderly customer that just has a hard time adapting and changing, and um, or a customer that's just had their dog is completely out of control. And what I do is the dog stays with me for a couple of weeks. I get the dog a little bit more calmer, a little bit more into pack drive, which means more focus on the owner. And then from there, they can carry on. Because sometimes if a dog is completely out of control, just getting that dog from a point from when they're out of control to the point where they're a little bit more focused, it's impossible for like a novice dog owner to do it on their own. So to at least get them to that point, bring them back, and then they can just carry on from there, it works out. But the whole idea that you're going to send your dog away and then your dog doesn't come back this completely changed dog, I disagree with that, because one, I want to know how this person did that. Were they, forcing and, coercing my dog to do this the whole time? And also, like you said, it's the bond. I mean, the bond part with your dog and that communication, that's about 75% of the training. The actual technique and philosophy and stuff is only about 25%.
Yeah. And I don't know if I told you I have that certificate from Duke about dog emotion and cognition, but I always love to mention to people as well, if you're getting into learning how to communicate with your dog, the professor that did that course has a website called Dognition, and you can actually go on there, sign up, and it gives you little tests and tasks to test your own dog's cognition at home, and it can be really insightful to how your dog processes information as well, and how bonded they are.
Wow, I have to check
It's
it out.
really, really fun and cool. And I'm so disappointed that I don't have a fur baby right now myself. So I just keep telling clients to do it for me because I want to play with the whole thing. I'm such a kind of nerd with that stuff. Thank you so much for being on. Where can everybody see you and find your stuff? I've talked about the Instagram, which is really, really cool. But sort of what's your availability? Where can they find out more about you?
Sure. So everything is through Instagram. I'm gonna add a website to that soon. The next couple of weeks, I have someone working on that. But I have a lot of things planned right now on Instagram. I post IGTV videos, long ones up to 15 minutes long, on different topics such as separation anxiety, leash pulling, barking. I also write blog posts on my Instagram about different topics. I get into detail there. And like I said, I'm offering webinars on Saturdays on different topics, just $20, and it starts off with a short presentation, and then I do a Q&A session after that, and people will love those. They have a lot of fun. I try to make it entertaining as possible
Yeah,
as
you
well.
definitely
So
you definitely give a lot of content, and I've watched your IGTV stuff too. Because I reiterate, I mention this all the time, but I'm not a trainer. So anytime there's questions to me, those should be grooming questions. You ask your vet questions, and you ask your
I'm the same way.
trainer questions. Because I'm not a trainer, I don't know everything, but I do end up watching your content too and learning something. There's always something to learn.
Yep, absolutely. So thank you. Just Instagram, you can find me there. If you want to join my webinars, you can shoot me a DM, and we can move from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll be on at another point in the future to pick your brain for
Yep.
more information. It was really cool to learn about this virtual stuff, and I can't wait to recommend it further to all these puppy parents. I'll see you next
Thank you
time.
so
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
Thanks for having me on. It
Yeah,
was great.
talk later.
Take
Bye
care.
bye. Thank you for listening, and follow us for more wherever you get your podcasts. Also, check us out on Instagram at A Brief Pause.